Hello and welcome to our mini presentation on application and interview questions from the Careers Service at Imperial College London. One of the first questions you may encounter at an interview could be a rocket or elevator pitch. This is a very short introductory presentation about yourself and is usually between 30 seconds to 2 minutes long. Around about a minute and a half is the optimal time. In the rocket or elevator pitch, you describe your background, skills and experience, your motivation and interest in the opportunity and the industry, and allow the interviewer to see a little bit of your personality. Think carefully about the key points you wish to get across during this time and link it to the role or organisation. You might use your practiced rocket elevator pitch to answer introductory questions such as "Tell us about yourself," and this gives a nice polished impression to the interviewers. You could also prepare something similar as a short introduction when you're networking at careers fairs or events in the future. After your rocket or elevator pitch, an employer may want to find out a little bit more about you and also check that you're aware of your strengths and weaknesses. A typical opening question could be, "Why should we employ you?" This is an opportunity to demonstrate your suitability and draw parallels between what you have to offer the employer and what they need. Highlight your skills, knowledge and experience relative to the role and match your values to those of the employer. Employers may also be interested in your extracurricular activities and what you've learned from these. Think about a reasonable range of activities you've undertaken, but avoid just simply giving lists. Providing some information about a few points will make your answer more impressive and memorable. Try to include some details and numbers to make it more credible, and activities which involve you with other people are generally a better idea than too many solitary sounding activities. Make sure that you explain any skills that you've developed as a result of these activities and how that might be useful in the job role. When thinking about strengths or weaknesses, it's important for self-awareness and evidence to the employer that you know and understand yourself. You need to answer honestly, of course, and wisely. Avoid corny options like saying you're a perfectionist or that you always work too hard. Employers are bored with these by now. A safe weakness is one that could become a strength when it's managed with insight. Think about things that irritate you when you work with others. This can often give clues as to your own weaknesses. What is your approach to deadlines, time management, public speaking and projects? Is there anything you wish to improve on? Knowledge gaps could be useful to mention as well. For example, "I wish I knew more about XXX." But beware of simply quoting past weaknesses that you've already overcome. You may be challenged at an interview for more current ones. Motivation questions are a key area for the employer to find out what really attracts you to this area that you've applied for and the evidence of your suitability. This is a really important question to get right, especially where you are applying to jobs not completely relevant to your studies. Your response must be logical and structured. It's not enough to say you've always wanted to pursue that career. Employers want reasons and evidence. Make a connection between your own personal strengths and the requirements of the job. Describe any practical steps you've taken to confirm the choice, for example by attending presentations, talking to employees of the firm, reading careers materials, attending workshops or other training events. If you're successful in joining this organisation, how would you like your career to develop in the next 3 years? The employer wants to know how you've thought about your longevity at the organisation. It's important to convey enthusiasm, ambition and drive in your response. An effective answer is well informed about the routes for progression or advancement within the organisation. Where would a person be after 3 years if they were doing well? It might be extra responsibility or professional qualifications. Why do you feel you're suited to a career with our company? Again, this type of question, the employer is looking to see whether you've done your homework, that you've researched into this particular employer and what it offers. So you need to go beyond the superficial, because too many graduates are looking for challenging opportunities in a fast-paced international environment. State what in particular is attractive to you and why. Go back to the research you undertook for your original application. Has anything changed for the organisation or industry since then? Many students will also be involved in either separate technical or commercial interviews, or will have technical and commercial questions as part of their main interview. Typical questions that Imperial students have had recently have included: how do you think machine learning could be applied to a scientific domain, for example, biology, chemistry or maths? What considerations would be made when designing a system to pump water from a river into a tank? Or you're immediately called after an F1 race because there's been a problem with the engine that needs solving by next week. What do you do first? Technical and commercial questions are designed to probe deeply into your knowledge and problem-solving skills. Go over the key skill sets and techniques described in the job description and think about how you've applied them in your work. How might you explain some of these concepts to non-specialists? You might want to practice some of these questions with others on your course or go over course materials. But remember to think out loud so your interviewers can see your approach to the question and the areas you have considered. A competency or behavioural question is used by employers to ask for specific examples of times or situations where you've used skills or demonstrated abilities. Employers normally ask these questions relating to transferable skills, for example, teamwork, analytical ability, or communication or leadership skills that they're looking for their candidates to have. A good way to answer these questions is to use the STAR technique. So when thinking about an answer to a competency question, for example, can you describe a time where you've had to solve a problem? Think STAR: situation, task, action, and results. So the situation should describe the situation that you were in and be about 10% of your answer. The task, again, should be relatively small, about 10% of your answer, and describes what you needed to accomplish. The action is the bulk of the answer, again about 70%, and it describes the action that you took and the skills that you used, so be sure to keep the focus on you, I, rather than we. Describe the skills and attributes you used, what went well, and what you learnt. And then finally, the result or outcome. What happened? What were the results? How did the event end? What did you accomplish? What did you learn? Try and describe your outcome in positive terms and quantified where possible. Using the STAR technique will allow you to have a fully formed answer with a clear beginning and clear end, so that the interviewer can see all the steps you took and the difference you made in that situation. Do be prepared for interviewers to grill you a little bit more about some of the examples that you've used. Some typical follow-up questions tend to be things like, what were the stakes? What did you say to make this happen? What were you thinking at that point? What were your team thinking at that point? What did you learn, and how might you avoid that issue in the future? So do be prepared to go into a bit more detail and really think about the value that you added to this particular scenario, or what you learned and how you would apply that in future in the role that you're going for. Some organisations use strength-based questions as an alternative to competency or behavioural-based questions. The idea is that there's no wrong answer to a strength-based question, and it's not something that you can prepare for in advance. So the answers that you give are spontaneous and showcase your personality and the way that you think. There's no wrong answer to these. The interviewer is looking for you to identify your strengths based on your assessment of when you've enjoyed what you're doing. So examples below are: when have you felt you've done well during your university studies? Are you a starter or a finisher? Are you a big picture or a detail person? What sort of role do you like playing in a team? And what are you most proud of? Often using quantifying words like most or greatest can add pressure, as you'll be worried that the example is not good enough. Don't be. As long as you can explain why your example was satisfying to you, it will be fine. Preparing for any strength-based question involves reflecting on your experiences and identifying what areas or parts of these you found the most enjoyable and interesting. Interviewers will be taking note of your body language, which will generally be very positive if you're talking about something you're passionate about. And finally, you may have some unusual questions asked as part of your job interview. These could be described as back of the envelope type questions, where you suddenly have to think about ballpark figures, and the employer is looking for you and the way that you approach these unusual questions, because they're really looking for your thought process and your approach to problem solving. In a lot of these cases, there are no right or wrong answers. The employer is just interested in how you'd approach them and the way that you would solve these problems. For some, like how many basketballs could you fit into this room, you may want to apply some of the techniques from our case study web pages and also our case study interviews. And finally, on behalf of the Career Service at Imperial, I want to wish you all the best with any upcoming interviews. Don't forget to book into one of our interview lab sessions, where you have the opportunity to practice with other students at Imperial. We also run mock interviews as well, so if you want to have a 40-minute practice, get in touch with us at careers@imperial.ac.uk and book something before the real thing. Best of luck